There are lions bigger than people, tigers that can weigh hundreds of pounds. But where are the giant dogs? Seriously, why did nature give us massive cats, but never a dog the size of one? And before you say Great Dane, yes, some dogs are enormous. But even the biggest domestic dogs don't naturally become lion-sized predators. So what is actually stopping a dog from becoming this big? The answer starts with something much bigger than dogs or cats: evolution. Dogs and cats took very different evolutionary paths to become successful predators. And those differences affected how large their bodies could realistically become. To understand it, imagine two predators hunting in completely different ways. One relies heavily on explosive power. The other is built more for endurance. Big cats are basically built like muscular ambush machines. A lion doesn't need to chase its prey for miles. It can hide, get close, explode forward, and use its strength to finish the hunt. That means powerful muscles and a heavy body can be extremely useful. Dogs, especially wild canids, often play a different game. Wolves can chase prey over much longer distances. So their bodies are strongly shaped around movement, stamina, and efficient running. And being enormous isn't always an advantage when you're built to run. Imagine trying to run for miles while carrying a giant amount of extra weight. Your legs would work harder, your body would heat up faster, and endurance would become harder. But here's where it gets interesting. Cats aren't simply bigger because they're stronger. Their entire hunting strategy rewards a different kind of body. Look at a lion's front end, especially its shoulders and forelegs. They're designed to deliver a huge amount of force in a short burst. Now look at a wolf: lean body, long legs, and a completely different movement pattern. Neither design is automatically better. They're built for different jobs. And evolution usually doesn't ask, can we make this animal bigger? It asks, what body works best for survival here? That's why animal size is always connected to environment, food, competition, and energy. Getting bigger only helps when the rest of the animal can support that size. And here's another problem. The bigger an animal gets, the more food it needs. A giant predator has to find enough calories to power that giant body. That sounds obvious, but in the wild, food isn't delivered to your doorstep. A predator has to spend energy just finding, chasing, and catching it. So there's a constant trade-off between size, energy, speed, and survival. But wait, haven't there been really huge dogs before? Actually, yes. And this is the part most people don't know. Ancient canids included species that were much larger and more heavily built than today's wolves. One famous example was Epicyon, an enormous extinct member of the dog family. So the idea of a giant dog isn't impossible at all. The real question is why modern wild dogs never reach lion or tiger size. And now we get into one of the biggest differences between these predators. Wolves are social hunters, and cooperation changes the equation. A pack doesn't necessarily need one gigantic animal to do all the work. Several medium-sized animals can combine their strength, speed, and endurance. Big cats often hunt alone or in smaller social groups, depending on the species. That can make individual size and power more valuable in certain situations. But there's another fascinating difference: how cats and dogs move. Cats are built for acceleration, jumping, climbing, and explosive movement. This doesn't mean cats can't run long distances or dogs can't sprint. It means their bodies are optimized around different combinations of abilities. And that brings us back to the original question. Why don't we see giant dogs roaming around like lions? Because becoming bigger isn't just about growing larger muscles. The skeleton has to support the weight. The heart and lungs have to supply that huge body with oxygen. The animal has to cool itself down. And it still needs enough food to survive and reproduce. Every extra kilogram comes with a cost, and nature tends to keep body sizes within limits that actually work. There's also something humans change dramatically: domestic dogs. Humans have selectively bred dogs for thousands of years. That's why today you can see tiny Chihuahuas and enormous Great Danes. Same species, wildly different body sizes. But selective breeding doesn't mean every size is equally healthy or practical. There's a physical limit to how far you can push an animal's body. And evolution faces the same problem, just over a much longer period. If being larger doesn't consistently improve survival, there's little reason for nature to keep pushing size upward. That's why the answer isn't simply, dogs can't get that big. The better answer is that modern dogs evolved under different pressures than giant cats, and those pressures shaped what each body became good at. So if you ever see a massive Great Dane, remember something surprising. You're already looking at one of the closest things we have to a giant dog. Humans simply helped push its body in a direction nature normally wouldn't. And ancient history proves that larger canids were possible. They just didn't follow the exact evolutionary path that produced today's giant cats. And that's the really cool part about evolution. There isn't one perfect body design. There's only a body that works well enough for the world the animal lives in. So the next time you see a lion and a dog, don't just compare their size. Think about what each animal's body was actually built to do. The lion doesn't need to be a dog, and the dog doesn't need to be a lion. They simply solved survival in two completely different ways. And honestly, that's why the question is so interesting. Sometimes the animals we don't see make just as much sense as the ones we do.